Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you.
So, thank you so much for being a part today's panel discussion as part of Kauai's Food System Summit. Today's discussion is going to be around Kauai farmer resources, supporting those who feed us. It is a recorded Zoom session, so we are going to be sharing this recorded session on Mālama Kauai's YouTube within the week for those who weren't able to make it on today's live session. I'll jump into an introduction. My name is Malia Contreras. I am a co-food access coordinator here at Mālama Kaua alongside Megan, who is actually going to be presenting on the panel today. Alrighty. So Mālama Kaua is the food access coordinating agency for Kauai and has been since 2018. We host quarterly food access meetings to increase multi-agency communications, collaborate more deeply, and to avoid duplication. As a part of today's discussion, we are actually going to be discussing progress made toward the Kauai Food Access Plan 2030 objectives. The link there is shared in the screen. And the purpose of today is to engage community further in our working groups to see the plan implemented and the progress amongst today. And then these are the objectives of the Kauai Food Access Plan. So today, this discussion, we are highlighting land access, equipment sharing, obtaining government funding, as well as invasive species. Joining us today along the panel, we have Megan Fox, who is our Executive Director of Mālama Kaua. We have Jolene Lau, who is the Outreach Coordinator for the USDA NRCS. Niki Kunioka-Volz, she is of the County of Kauai Economic Development Office. And Calvin, who is part of the USDA Farm Service Agency as the County Executive Director. We also have, for our audience joining us today, we'll have time for Q&A, but at any time, feel free to drop a question in that Q&A section at the bottom or top of your screen, and then we'll make sure to have time towards the end to be able to answer all of those. Right.
Can everybody hear me? Hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear
All
you.
right, great. So thanks for coming to the session. Today I'm just going to talk about some of the Mālama Kaua programs that we have for supporting our food producers and some of the impacts of those over the past few years. So in general, if anyone's not familiar, we're a nonprofit organization. We've been around for almost 20 years now and focusing pretty deeply on increasing local food production and access. And we have a lot of different strategies of doing that, really focusing on building a resilient island and food system through workforce and economic development, partnerships, and innovative programs to grow community capacity. And so today I'm going to talk about our Mahiai programs and how we use farmer inclusion to develop our programming, touch briefly on our food hubs impacts over the past few years, our Moloa'a Aina Center processing facility, our grant programs, fiscal sponsorships, and our Olohana Aina Center, which is our new ag park project, and just summarize some of our takeaways and learnings. So all of our programs are developed by our farmers, with our farmers. We've been doing annual food hub vendor surveys we have over 100 producers, and we get a lot of information from them on what's still needed, where their gaps and bottlenecks are, as well as some of these formal reports that we've done. These reports are available on our website at maalamakaua.org if you want to hear any feedback or takeaways from any of these assessments and focus groups. And so one of those programs that started as a direct response to COVID in 2020 was we started our food hub, and the food hub does aggregation and distribution of local food products from across the state, but primarily on Kauai, especially our produce. We do commercial and retail sales, so wholesale and direct to consumer. We run the Cow for Keiki summer feeding program and also run Kapuna food distribution. So thousands of residents across the entire island get our food from us. And just a little bit of information from about our vendors. 30% are Native Hawaiian owned businesses, 56% are BIPOC owned businesses. This year we're on track to do over 750,000 in local food purchasing. We actually don't track or target sales as much as we track the purchasing, because the purchasing is what benefits the farmers. And then over the last 5 years, we've done over 3.5 million in local food purchasing. So one of the bottlenecks as we started doing our food hub that got addressed was processing, distribution, cold storage for both us and farmers. So we had partnered with Mola Irrigation Cooperative, which is technically probably one of the biggest farming clusters. It's about 70 farmers, over 600 acres or so of land. So it's a really big farming cluster for our island. And we built this facility completely from the ground up. It was about $3.2 million over the course of 3 years. And it has various processing equipment, dehydration, there's egg washer for cooperative egg washing, all kinds of ice machine for farmers. They fill up their coolers to go to market. There's a business office in there with label printers and internet and computers. There's no internet access in that Moloa farm region, so it's a great place for people to come and be able to use those facilities. It's also where the base of our aggregation and distribution happens, so a lot more space. There's 3 walk-in cold storage units and things like that. In terms of grant programs, we've done over $1 million, and I just wanted to highlight some of the recent ones that we did. Here's some, like the COVID relief is really where we started doing a lot of our granting programs, because there wasn't a very quick, easy mechanism for farmers to get grants. And I have to say, thanks to the county, Niki's here. She's partnered on a ton of these with us. A lot of this is us helping to re-grant or sub-grant a lot of county funds through a lot of these programs, like the Safe and Stable Farms program, feed program. They helped with Kalo to Kula farmer grants. So it's been a really great partnership with county, and state has helped some of these as well, feds, and even private funds. So yeah, lots of different things have grown over the years. The COVID response was really Safe and Stable Farms, focused on food safety in partnership with CTAR and North Shore EVP. We did a PEAT program to build up Hawaiian-owned chicken farms across the island. We've done some feed, which was more of a crop innovation program, feed orchards, which was a tree expansion program, especially with all the invasives that have been kind of attacking our tree crops. It was targeted on helping some of our farmers rebound from some of those. Kalo to Kula, which is mostly taro farmers across the island. And right now our 2 current programs are Hui Hanai Ai, which is a Native Hawaiian farmer program. We have 1 more cohort of that left next year. It'll be 10 farmers at $10,000 each. And then we have our Village Harvest. We're doing greenhouse installations for food tree production. One's going up or almost done at Prince Kuhio and Nakahu, Oho'ai, and then Keikoa in Anahola is the other one, as well as our ag park. Along with that has been fiscal sponsorships, and it was really interesting when I put this slide together. I didn't realize that all of our projects were water related, and I think that really speaks to really the basic needs of farmers and where some of the infrastructure updates really need to happen. Both of these taro huis, both Waioli and Makaveli, both had really outdated systems that needed irrigation system repairs. Moloa Irrigation Cooperative had old systems, needed efficiency improvements. The Rural Order Guys irrigation system. So we're seeing a lot of trends where a group of farmers, a group of people need help with some larger grants, might not be as on like, grant administration and all the paperwork. And we really lend ourselves to help them through that and get them some funding. And then next up right now, our big active project is our Olohana Aina Center. So we're partnering with the Bette Midler land up on Olohana Road. And we actually just had surveyor come in. It looks like that 25-acre parcel is going to be more like 30. So we'll even have a little bit more sub-licensed farm plots, which is great because our list is getting really big of interested farmers. And that's going to have some shared infrastructure with, greenhouses, cold storage, equipment storage, wash and pack station, bathroom, shower, small business and meeting space. Again, trying to find ways for lots of farmers to benefit from one investment so that there's shared access to resources. And this is especially important for folks who are just starting out. Land access is really one of the #1 challenges that came up consistently in our food access plan. And this was one way to get there. So if you would like to join us, we're having our first big tree planting for our community orchard as well on the 10th, and we'd love to see you if you want to come put your name on a tree and get it in the ground as we kick things off. For takeaways and learnings, there's been a lot throughout the years. I think listening to our farmers is first and foremost, and we're able to adapt. Actually, the rest of the panelists, you guys are in government, so you have access to a lot more resources, but maybe not as much flexibility all the time. And that's something that we've really thrived upon, is our ability to just pivot at the drop of a hat, change things up very quickly, and not have to deal with any bureaucracy really. So we've been able to change application processes, especially for our farmers with English as a second language. It can be really difficult to access grants and figure out a lot of that grant paperwork. So we usually use really, really simple Google forms, and we do site visits. And the site visits is an opportunity to have conversations, learn more, and get into the nitty-gritty. Also, over the years, we have moved from what used to be a reimbursement model to a direct payment process for our grants, which basically we used to have the farmers collect receipts and then request reimbursements, and lots of challenges with folks maybe not following the grant rules and like getting denied for reimbursement or losing their receipts, not being able to find them, not turning them in on time. So we just said, you know what, let's make a list, let's work together, we'll buy your things for you, and that way we can keep the paperwork tight, you can get what you need without having to do paperwork. And they've been really grateful for that, and so have we, because it's kept our paperwork real clean. Something we've had to, I guess, accept in this work is that not every program is going to work out as intended. Not every farmer is going to be successful, and just accepting that that's okay. Farming is a learning process, and not everybody is going to be able to do what they wanted or set out to do. So being able to work with people so that it is a learning process and isn't seen as a failure, because sometimes those things do happen. And lots of extensions and things like that, deadline extensions for paperwork and whatnot. Some takeaways of learning, it's been really interesting, is that we've really seen over the past 5 or 6 years that our locally grown food businesses are much more resilient, as are businesses that are serving local audiences. And I think a lot of people have seen that over COVID, the pandemic, and different disasters that we've had, that the more connected a farmer is to the community, the more support they get to bounce back. And also, if they are serving, especially during COVID when our tourism market dropped out, it was really apparent and clear who was actually serving residents and who was not. The people who are not were really struggling. So kind of highlighting like diversification of revenue models for our farmers and things that are important for them to keep in mind. We also found out, interestingly, that Native Hawaiian owned businesses have been more vested in feeding the community as a priority, and that's helped us to kind of direct some of our grant programs to double down and access funds that are specifically earmarked for Native Hawaiian owned businesses. And that's, the reasons span the gamut, and we haven't dove into it incredibly deeply to pull out a ton of data, but it's been really interesting that there's just more of a commitment and a desire, especially for like our Cow for Keiki programs and Kapuna feeding programs and the WIC and SNAP and DeBucks program. Like actually feeding people who really need it is at the heart of a lot of people, and there's a little bit more commitment there by certain demographics statistically, which is quite interesting, I think. versus, selling to like higher end, the juice bars and the restaurants and the hotels and things like that. So I guess because of that, a lot of our grants and programs have grown into a really reciprocal kind of like systems building support network where the partners, the farmers are even working together through us hosting grantee dinners that have been really beneficial for them to share their learnings. It allows them to build connections off their farm with us and each other. And that way they're actually supporting each other with information, with equipment. Our partners get to build stronger relationships with them. And so, what used to be more of like a paperwork administrative role has become a much more deeply technical assistance relationship role with our farmers. And that's really allowed us to stay on top of what their needs are even more closely because we do check in with them so frequently. So I think that's been really pivotal to how our programs have been shaped and also how we can better help our businesses and like customize our services to meet their needs. And, a lot of this is government funding that we just make more accessible and more simple for these farmers to access. So thanks to our government partners too on the call for helping to make that happen. And so that's really all I had to share. I usually tend to go fast. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A and we'll answer them later. These are our websites if you have any information you want to check out. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Megan. Before we hand the floor off to Jolene, I just wanted to check in if any of the panelists or audience have any questions. And then we'll also have some time at the end as a reminder. Alrighty. All right, Jolene.
Thank you for having NRCS as part of your panel here today. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jolene. I am the outreach coordinator from Honolulu. For our Lehui office, we have Jenna Dunn, our district conservationist, and then Devin, our soil conservationist. Both happen to be on leave today, enjoying a long weekend. So here I am. If you're not familiar with the United States Department of Agriculture, there's many different agencies under USDA, and we are just one of them. So Natural Resources Conservation Service, you can go to the next slide. We are the federal agency providing conservation planning for farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners. So our agency been around for over 90 years, trying to address soil erosion. Back in the Dust Bowl days, they recognized the importance of topsoil and didn't want to see our topsoil being blown across the state lines. So they encouraged cover crops. So in the picture that you see, that's a mix of sun hemp, buckwheat before a planting. And basically it's to keep soil in its place. And so the bulk of our work is protecting the soil. And when we assist with conservation planning, this is free of charge. This is voluntary. So all of our landowners have the choice to take the suggestions, use it or not use it. Each of our conservation plans come with the maps, soils information. Sometimes it's engineering if that is involved in the project. But for Kauai County, this fiscal year, we have 53 conservation plans that are active. Next slide. So in talking about the funding available, the Farm Bill authorizes our agency to administer financial aid. the Environmental Quality Incentives Program is just one of many in the Farm Bill, and this is probably the most common of the Farm Bill funding opportunities. The application is accepted year-round. There's no deadline for this particular program. And the focus really is to improve our air, soil, and water quality. Maybe it's efficient irrigation, primarily preventing soil erosion. And so far this fiscal year, we made available over $700,000 for Kauai County. And there are 23 active with 3 brand new EQIP applicants. Next slide. Conservation stewardship is, again, one of the Farm Bill programs available. And this one helps with folks already doing conservation and maybe just want to enhance the projects on their property. So in this particular picture, again, cover cropping in an agroforestry project. And this one also, we accept applications year-round. So far this fiscal year, we made $253,000 available, 6 new contracts and 3 active ones for CSP. Next slide. Also under the Farm Bill, so Hawaii is one of few states in the nation to have agricultural management assistance program. And this one, as the picture shows you, what we call a high tunnel. Some folks think this is like a greenhouse, but it's mainly to support minimizing like pest control, water management. So right now we've got 27,000 on one contract for your county. And I think that was the last slide. Basically, I just want to encourage all of you to contact your local office if you are not familiar with Jenna or Devin. We also partner with the Soil and Water Conservation District for East and West Kauai. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Jolene. Wow, those are some impressive numbers. Thank you for including that in there. Alrighty, Niki, we're gonna pass it off to you to present next.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Malia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Niki Kunioka-Volz. I serve as the agriculture specialist with the County of Kauai's Office of Economic Development. And today I'm just going to kind of do a brief overview of the role of the Office of Economic Development in supporting the greater food system. I'll touch a little bit on how we work as sort of a touch point or a liaison to farmers, organizations, and community members with the different departments at the county that they may be required to engage with. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a pretty brief presentation, but I hope I provide some quality information for you folks. So to get things started, when and why farmers engage with the County of Kauai, generally it can be split into 2 categories, regulatory and resources. The role of economic development is to kind of help you folks navigate land use, water, property, building, and business support services, while also helping to connect you folks with grants and market opportunities. Next slide, please. So just generally, these are the departments that we've noticed food producers often engage with. These are just some examples of the things that you might go to any one of these departments for assistance with: permitting, property dedications, agricultural water use rates, and more permitting. We all love regulatory permitting. Next slide. So in a nutshell, sorry, I'm trying to just make sure my notes are aligned with the correct slides here. So the planning department, they administer and enforce the zoning and subdivision ordinances. Within the department, they have divisions such as long range and regulatory, and they work on community documents such as a general plan, the community long range plans, and comprehensive zoning ordinances. So this is just kind of a quick capture of the different permits or regulatory areas that you might go to the planning department for. The QR code there will take you directly to their website if you want to learn more about this. I strongly recommend, if you have any reason to approach the planning department for a permit, you can always come to me, and I can help answer some of your questions. I can do some homework on the back end and help get you more informed. But I strongly recommend you reach directly out to the planning department and start engaging with them early on. They have the most direct and accurate information to make sure that you're not, wasting your time, or that you're not looking at an inappropriate permit that you may be applying for. They're really good at kind of listening to you and hearing what you're trying to accomplish, and then kind of hand-holding and helping you navigate their permitting processes. Next slide, please. Department of Finance, this is the department that administers the agriculture dedication program. So if you are farming land and you want to get a lower tax rate on your active agricultural lands, you need to fill out this form here. The deadline is July 1st of each year, and that applies the property tax rate for the next fiscal year. Next slide. For Public Works, this is a department that farmers and ranchers often engage with. They oversee a bunch of permits relating to building, engineering, and solid waste. One thing that often gets overlooked is our sign ordinance. Department of Public Works and their building division oversees the sign ordinance. So if you want to advertise out to the public and put up like a permanent sign, or if you want to work with the property owner and promote a specific event and put banners for that, you do have to have a county permit for that. It's really easy to obtain, but it's just one of the permits that often goes unknown to our community. Next slide, please. Department of Water, there is a agriculture water rate that provides water at a reduced rate for qualifying activities, and that includes agriculture production. So again, if you are irrigating your farm or using water on your ranch, municipal water, you can go ahead and apply for a lower water rate to reduce the cost of your municipal water use. Next slide. And then lastly, for pretty much all of the permits that you're going to require from the County of Kauai, you can access those through this portal, connect.kauai.gov. This is a website where you create a login. You can fill out the permits, submit them, upload the required documentation, depending on what type of permit you're seeking. And this is the portal that the county will kind of keep you updated on where you are in that permitting process. If you receive an approved permit, you need to go sign back in, check your messages in this Connect portal to see where your application stands. Something that often is forgotten, and we do this too at the county. When we host events, we also have to go for permits for certain things, specifically like a sign permit, and oftentimes we'll be sitting here thinking, oh, we still haven't heard about our sign permit because we're expecting an email notification that it's been processed, but that's not the way that this connect.gov or connect.kauai.gov portal works. You need to actually sign back in and check your messages within the portal. You're not going to receive an email notification to the email that you use to create your login. So So just keep that in mind. Next slide. All right. This is, I think, the meat and potatoes of why most of the food producers might be here to learn about this. It's the resources that the County of Kauai provides to help support the food system. So through the Office of Economic Development, there are various programs that help food producers. I think the most sought after resource is our grant program. But we also have business support. We operate one Sunshine Market, the only government operated farmers market on Kauai. And then we have a Kauai Made program, which is a branding and marketing program to highlight products that are made on Kauai, typically with 50% or more locally sourced ingredients or raw materials, but there are exceptions if we do not have the raw materials or ingredients to create the product that you're selling. For example, we have people who make homemade breads, sourdoughs, and then we don't have a wheat industry here. And so that's an example of where there's a little bit of leeway when it comes to that minimum percentage of raw ingredients being locally sourced. Next slide, please. All right, so grants. Grants is, we have several grant programs at the county. I think the most well-known are the Mayor's Office's Grant and Aid Program. That supports nonprofit projects. They usually have about $100,000 a year. And generally there was no defined floor or ceiling, but they may have changed that this year. I'm not quite sure. I think it may be like a 10,000 maximum ask, or maybe a little bit more than that. They run their grant program usually around the end of summer. So their grant program just closed. I think they're currently in their scoring process, reviewing the applications. And then on the opposite end, at the Office of Economic Development, we run 2 annual programs that benefit food producers and the greater food system. We have an annual innovation grant that opens in late summer, early fall. We just closed that. The deadline to apply to that one was September 2nd. And that has a maximum grant amount of $50,000 per project. We have different program sectors within our office, and each sector has a specific amount of money that they're allowed to allocate towards grant funding. And for myself, the agriculture program at the Office of Economic Development generally has the largest pool of grant funds for the innovation grants, somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000 each year. And then we also run an annual agriculture farm expansion grant. That is a much larger grant pot. It's generally around $500,000 for $400,000 to $500,000 each year. And that grant program has a maximum ask of $100,000 for the project. Because this grant program, the Ag Expansion Grant Program, is tailored to support farmers and ranchers themselves, we open the grant RFP in early November, and we allow 2 months for the application process. Generally, at the county, our grant programs have a 1-month application timeframe, but because we know farmers and ranchers are out there working all the time, and they may not be the most familiar with applying for grants or thinking about how to set up a project proposal, we do allocate an additional month for them to get their grant application in. So in the past couple of years that we've run this, we've opened the grant in early November, generally around the first week of November, and then we close the grant. The deadline is in the first week of January. And we know it's hard timing because it's during the holidays, but we hope that extending that grant application timeframe to 2 months kind of helps make up for the craziness that often occurs during the holidays. And then, yeah, here's a brief overview. Since 2019, which is when I joined the Office of Economic Development, we have administered over $3 million in grant funds to support Kauai's food system. We have administered a lot more money in general in grants, but this is the amount of funds. I went through all of our projects in the past 6 years and summed up all of the amounts that we funded these are funds that only went to food programs, whether that's rancher support, farmer support, food system support, and infrastructure support. Yeah, we've done over $3.2 million. These grants have helped launch programs ranging from like farm to school initiatives, compost production, irrigation upgrades, cold storage, greenhouse building, drone training, food safety certifications, workforce development, invasive species management, and the list goes on and on. We can go to the next slide, and there's just some examples of the types of projects that we have funded over the past 6 years. Something that directly relates to this group and food access and food access plan is we worked with the Hawaii Food Bank to procure cold storage units and get those set up in various food pantry and food distribution areas on Kauai so that we can kind of close the geographic gaps for cold storage for emergency food response. Next slide, please. All right, so these are our county-sponsored market access programs. Beyond our grant and funding programs, we directly manage programs that expand market access. So the Sunshine Market operates out of the Kapa'a Beach Park, where residents and visitors connect directly with the local growers. This program is smaller farmers market, but it's a strong one. It is, to my knowledge, I believe the only free farmers market to participate in for farmers. So that helps to keep their sort of market access costs down and help them generate more revenue. And then we also manage a Kauai Made program, which is a branding and marketing program for products that are authentically made on Kauai. These help small businesses gain visibility through retail partnerships, craft fairs, and county promotions. This program does come with a fee. It's $50 per product and $75 per retail front if you are a company that has a brick and mortar storefront. You can visit our website to learn more about that. Here's a QR code to our website there. This is just a brief overview of our office in general. We're a small but diverse office, and we have coordinators focused on agriculture, business, energy, film, tourism, energy, sustainability. For myself, you know, I'm here dedicated to help the farmers and ranchers succeed. But because we work across sectors, we also can help connect producers with other folks. For example, if you're a farmer or a rancher and you want to work on a marketing campaign and you're looking for someone to do social media and film, you can contact us. We can point you in a direction, or there's some folks on island that may be able to help you. We're kind of like a one-stop shop for local information around resources. So if kind of keep the ranchers and farmers from spending too much time running around trying to figure out, you know, answers to questions, they can come to us and we can kind of pull up together as a team and figure out, okay, how do we help a producer? What kind of information are they looking for? Who do they need to be put into contact with? And we can kind of handhold through that process. And that's it. Yeah, so mahalo for inviting me. Mahalo for being here. Happy to answer any questions or talk more about how we can support your work. Give us a call. And that's it.
Thank you, Nikki. That was a great presentation. It was so amazing to see such a vast list of like diverse projects that the county has funded. Alrighty, Calvin, we're gonna hand it off to you next.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Just to introduce myself, my name is Calvin Thread. I'm the County Executive Director for USDA Farm Service Agency. If we go to the next slide for me, please. So USDA Farm Service Agency is one of 18 agencies in USDA. There's many employees, many locations. Our primary role is to service commercial farmers, ranchers, and agriculture producers. So flower growers, aquaculture, the whole gamut. we work closely with NRCS and rural development. So we usually consider those two other agencies our sister agencies because we really work close with them. We also work with the soil water conservation districts, which, as you guys heard earlier, works with NRCS as well. We consider ourselves basically a gatekeeper of information, and we basically use the information we get to create farming tracks for our producers out there that interact with rural development and RCS. So the way we get our funding, the way that we're funded, is through the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill is legislation that's supposed to be passed every 5 years. The was supposed to be passed in 2023, but has been delayed, and so right now we're working on continuing resolutions, and then also the American Relief Act signed in December 2024, which basically extended the Farm Bill from 2018. So we're still seeing if they'll have a new Farm Bill. We don't know. That's one of the things you got to contact your legislators to really advocate for things that you guys think that should be included. Next slide, please. So what we mainly do is we have a bunch of different farm programs that help out with disaster. We have some ad hoc things, farm loans, and you can see it through this list. We have conservation programs, crop insurance, and then we have a bunch of other programs that help out with disaster issues. That's usually our bread and butter. What we usually help out people the most with is with the drought that we're currently in. When we get flooding like we did last year in April, those are the programs that we usually do the most help. But we do have some other programs that aren't disaster related, like these bottom two, OCCSP and FSC-SC. Those are great programs for people that are continuously having to get certified. We also have another program, which I'll talk in just a little bit, called RTCP, which is a reimbursement transportation cost program. This program was specifically put in the Farm Bill to help out producers like Hawaii, Alaska, people that don't have the mainland access of roads and trucking and shipping. Everything is a little more expensive, so they created that program to help out, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So fiscal payments. So one thing to notice here is in the last fiscal year, our fiscal years run from October 1st, the previous year, until September 30th. So right now we're still finishing up our fiscal year 2024 and 25. Through this past year, we have given out payments totaling $1.9 million. Now, this really fluctuates depending on what's in the Farm Bill legislation, the program availability. Are we having a lot of disasters? Because it really will fluctuate. For example, I didn't put this in here, but the year before, we only made about $400,000 in payment. The year before that was $700,000. If you go back all the way to COVID, it was again another $2 million. So it really depends on what's going on. A lot of things, these programs are sort of ad hoc to sort of meet the needs of our producers for what's going on like today. Next slide. So going back to the RTCP program, I just like to plug this because it is our most popular program. This basically helps offset the transportation costs, like I spoke about. The deadline is September 30th, so we got 2 more weeks. So people that have interest can still apply. This is really helpful because it covers a whole gamut of things. Anything that you use to produce your commodity in your operation, it'll basically offset that cost. So we're talking about fuel, we're talking about seeds, inputs, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, any of those things. If you do use that, parts, irrigation parts, if you need to do new fencing so that you don't have pigs going in there, that kind of thing, that expense of the fencing you can use as part of your reimbursement. We really highly encourage people to apply, and if you have questions, we could reach out. Next slide. So this is just what I talked about before: eligible input costs, chemicals and fertilizers, equipment parts, feed, supplies, plant seeds. This maxes out at $8,000. Some years there's more money available, so they'll do a supplemental. But it's always nice. I try and convince people that yes, there's a lot of paperwork involved, especially dealing with USDA. But most of that paperwork is going to get a benefit to you. So spend a little time doing paperwork will get benefits in the long run. I know we all hate paperwork and everything like that. So this is my information. Let me just do a little quick overview of how the whole situation, how everything works. Basically, if you have a need, I like to encourage people to come, make an appointment, come down to the office, come talk story, and we figure out how that we can help you out. There's a couple websites there at the bottom, fsa.usda.gov and farmers.gov. That has a wealth of information in there that you could just do a deep dive and try and explore what you need. But a lot of people like to meet face to face. So I highly encourage people to come down and meet face to face. The way it works usually is I'll need a lease or a deed to show that you have control of the land. From there, I'll walk you through the steps of filling out the eligibility paperwork. It's a lot easier when I'm there because you don't have to second guess of what is this, because there's a lot of technical terms and words in there. Once we get through all the eligibility paperwork, I will create a farm and track for you. Once you have a farm and track, then you can actually do a lot of things with soil water conservation districts and NRCS as well. From there, you can apply for our programs. You can also apply for farm loans. We do have a plethora of farm loans. I'm not the expert in it, so I didn't really mention it too much, but we have anywhere from ownership loans to operation loans that if you need to help your operation for another a year to get through a hard times, those are really, really excellent farm loans because they're usually the cheapest interest that you can find. We also have youth loans if people are doing 4-H things or raising animals for FFA or something like that. They have youth loans, which basically will teach your kids to be in the business of agriculture. They get a loan, they raise that animal, they sell that animal at auction, then they pay back the loan and they get into the cycle. So if you have interest, we highly just encourage, just reach out, give me a call. And that is all for my presentation. I didn't take 15 minutes at all. So hope people, if they have questions, let me know and just come talk story with me.
Thank you, Calvin, for sharing. We are now going to open up the floor for some Q&A. I'm going to stop my screen share and I'll do a little check-in to see if we had any responses from the audience. All right. So the question for the panelists. So would you say your funding for farmers is increasing or decreasing?
Well, just like I spoke on the last presentation, my funding really depends on what's going on. There is some specific funding for programs like RTCP that I spoke a lot about. But for the most part, all this other disaster funding is depending on what's going on in the environment. There is occasionally ad hoc programs that come out of nowhere and you get like 2-3 weeks to apply. But the best way to get funding is to go contact your legislator and reach out to them and say, hey, we need this and this, and try and get them put it into legislation. And then that's where I can come in.
Yeah, I think I kind of echo Calvin. We're a little different on the county. We generally over the past 5 years, really since COVID, and that kind of highlighted the vulnerability of our food system, that really got a lot of decision makers and politicians alerted and aware about the dire need we have to support our local food system. So from the county's end, we're seeing incremental increases. But similar to Calvin, we do have occasional ad hoc funding programs that are made available, and largely that's because the community, the industry is reaching out to our elected officials and bringing their concerns to the forefront and asking for government assistance. And we've been really blessed that our county council and our mayor has been very receptive to this type of feedback, and they've responded by increasing my annual budget every year and allowing me to grant even just a little bit more funds each year. So it really matters, get civically engaged, contact our county council members, contact the mayor's office, share the needs that you and your agribusiness operation has. And oftentimes, the more folks that call in and let our decision makers know that they need assistance, our decision makers have been fairly responsive and pretty supportive about using county funds to support our local food system. But I would, we could always use more. Grants are a great way to support our farmers, ranchers, and the greater food system. Loans are amazing. The USDA has some great low interest loans. Those are great, but grants don't require you to pay them back. So I know, people like grants.
For us, I can't really say. I think the funding world is so crazy right now, and unreliable. I think on the federal side, we're not sure really what's going to come through and what's not. And that just, and even in the private sector, I think people are watching their purse strings a little bit tighter, where we used to get maybe like a 75% like yes rate on our grants. We're probably down to like a 25-30% yes rate. So, acceptance rate, whatever you want to call it. So it's been kind of a unique position economically, I think, that we're in, and the worse position we're in, the less likely we are to be able to, outreach and help other people too. So, I think right now, like, our main focus is on our last year of the Hui Hanai I program and getting kind of our current grants completed, but that one's going to open up early next year. So it's for Native Hawaiian, farmer, rancher, fisher, any kind of food producer. It could be value added business. That year's funding is from OHA, so Office of Hawaiian Affairs funding. And we're looking to put 10 Native Hawaiian businesses through like a cohort program together to get $10,000 mini grants and some technical assistance to kind of roll out business expansions. After that, who knows?
From the NRCS side of things, I echo Calvin. We are not going to know what our budget is for October 1st until Congress issues that. Hopefully there's no government shutdown either. What I would add, once funding is made available and announced, I highly encourage folks to come in. NRCS is in the same building with Farm Service Agency at Rice Street. So if our applicant pool is not utilizing the funds that we are provided, then Congress takes it back. And then next fiscal year, they might say, well, you didn't need it all last time. So it's real important to get the applications in, show the need for financial assistance through any of the Farm Bill programs. Thank you. Back to you.
Hi, we're right next to each other. We did have a question coming in from the audience or attendees, and this question to the panel: in your opinion, what would be the minimum acreage of land that would make becoming a legitimate farmer, and all that includes?
Shall I jump in, or Megan, you want to go?
I mean, from my perspective, it's not how much land you have, but how much food you're producing for what our programs are about. Because I've seen people on 10 acres produce less food than somebody on a half an acre. So I think it's more about impact to the food system, to me. And for me personally, in our programs, it's where your food's going. If you're just farming for a fancy hotel, like, you might not be our target market. If you're farming to feed the community in some way, that's our target market. So, but I think you're a legitimate farmer no matter what. Most of our farms are under 5 acres, so small's normal.
Yeah, I was trying to
Yeah.
find sometime in the past couple months, the Hawaii Department of Agriculture and now Hawaii Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity released two kind of like white or research papers that were done, I believe, by their market analysis branch. But there was one paper that kind of highlighted the sort of like financial success of different farms in Hawaii based on acreage and based on production type. And I can't recall exactly, but according to this paper, and it was a snapshot of all agriculture production across the state, not just on Kauai, but I want to say that like that small mid-sized farms actually showed the strongest financial performance. So I think it was like 2 to 5 acres or so. And I think in Hawaii, like something like 90% of our farms are less than 10 acres large. So, you know, take that into consideration. I know farmers on Kauai who started off with a quarter acre and were generating $25,000 to $30,000 a year growing food on a quarter acre and selling to, you know, through CSA or selling direct to consumers. So you can do a lot with a quarter acre.
From the farm service side, there is no minimum for acres. The only thing for us is for farm service agency, we specifically deal with commercial sales. So we look at people that sell at least $1,000 of produce per year, essentially, somewhere around there. But it could be as small as 0.01. I forget how small that is, but really, really tiny if you really want to scale it down. Because there has been a push for urban agriculture, so vertical planting, vertical farming, that kind of thing. So for us, we're not looking at like a minimum acreage wise, but we're looking at, hey, you actually are selling your produce. It's not just you doing it for sustenance. So yeah.
Thank you for answering. Jolene, did you have anything to add to that?
Our applicant pools go through Calvin at the Farm Service Agency for eligibility, so he handled that question. Thank you.
I think that Jolene and Calvin, this kind of your presentations today kind of answers this question. But maybe this can tie into how Niki, like if this partnership aligns. So how are agencies working together to align their efforts so farmers don't get lost in red tape or overwhelmed by applications?
Well, for me, like Jolene said, we FSA and NRCS, we really work close together because you have to do eligibility through my agency. But that being said, I also like to reach out to Niki and know what other agency, what other departments going on. Talk to Megan. I've reached out before to her that like, hey, I got a program that's open really small amount of time. Could you help, publish this? And because of we're on an island, I believe those kind of relationships are just make our island stronger because then you learn what's available because everybody got a little bit different things they can actually do and help you out with. And so just trying to find out ways to help out all of our people.
And I have to say, if anyone hasn't signed up for NRCS and Farm Service Agency, I did, and the paperwork made my eyes kind of roll in the back of my head. It's very confusing, but Calvin and Jen were just like, this line, this line, this line, next sheet, this line here. And it was so fast and so easy. If I had to read that at home and try to figure it out and send it in, they probably would have had to send it back to me like 10 times if I did it wrong. So I would highly recommend making an appointment, going in person and just getting it all done in one swoop. You can apply for both agencies at the same time, and they'll make sure your paperwork process is real easy. Just from personal experience.
Thank you. And then
Yeah.
like Megan and I are sitting right next to each other. Both of your offices are like a door apart as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so on the county, we try to keep things easy. We know that federal funding opportunities can be a doozy. We feel the same way when we go for federal funding opportunities. It's You know, it's applying for, I mean, we don't go for federal loans, but if we go for, I've applied for a federal USDA grant for large grants. That in and of itself was like a full-time job for like a month, just working on the paperwork on our end. So we totally understand. We try to be an easy entry for farmers and ranchers to start to get familiar with having to keep records and fill out paperwork when it comes to looking for funding assistance. And a part of that is because we want to build the capacity within our food system for folks to be able to look at a funding opportunity from the federal side and not be scared and not be daunted by the amount of paperwork, because they're slowly practicing with the county and maybe they're going to go for a state ag loan, slowly getting their feet wet, getting a little bit more comfortable with the paperwork side. That's kind of one of the reasons we try to make our paperwork process easier. We've even just recently in our own grant programs, we used to use a specific grant application portal, and we've heard so much bad feedback from applicants and from grantees that the system itself was so clunky and hard to navigate, hard to understand. And to be frank, we felt the same way on the back end. We thought it was a difficult system to work with. And so we've changed, we adjusted, we tried to make things smoother. But a lot of that is feedback from you folks, without us knowing your experiences, we don't know how difficult it is. So we don't really engage too much trying to streamline things across these different levels of jurisdictional responsibility, between county, state, and the feds. But we do pay attention and trying to learn from little lessons and hearing anecdotal experiences from other folks and make small incremental changes so that ultimately it becomes less daunting.
And I would say we're like the gateway drug to grant funding, because our grants are smaller, but they're also super, super simple, tons of handholding, very, very easy. But if you do good with us, we're the ones that are also like pushing and helping you to get to that next level. If you can handle a grant with us, we'll be like, hey, you're ready to go for the bigger ones. And sometimes we look at people and we're like, you're struggling. Maybe we need to like brush up on your follow through before you're ready for something. So we try to like teach people their first grant. Most of the people that we are giving grants to, it is their first time getting any kind of funding for their farms. A lot of folks are fairly small, newer farms, or just haven't tapped into that yet. So we like to kind of build their trust also. I think sometimes people see like USDA or government and they're grumbling about some permit they got denied, so they don't trust the county, or they're grumbling about, the feds. And so building them, I guess, confidence in those agencies too, and being like, hey, these guys are awesome. Look at the money they've been able to get us. We work with them. Have you actually sat and met with them yet? And having them like call and go meet the people and build those relationships, I think is something we try to like get people, I guess, in that funding funnel, so to speak.
Thank you, Megan. And the only thing I would add, on the USDA side of things, both Calvin at FSA and the NRCS office, there's an opportunity to sign up for the newsletters. So if you want immediate announcements in your inbox about funding opportunities, that's probably the best way. My recommendation is to sign up for the newsletters, especially with the new fiscal year coming up October 1st. There could be all kinds of changes, to streamline things or add or take away programs out of Farm Bill. I mean, you want the news hot and fresh, sign up for the newsletters. That's my best recommendation.
Thank you so much. I do have one more question. What role does community advocacy or storytelling play in helping secure better resources for Kauai farmers?
I can take a quick stab. I mean, I mentioned previously, it plays a major role. It plays a major role, especially from the county perspective. You know, like I I have to sometimes remind folks, like, county employees, we work for the county, but we're residents. We're in the community. You know, I'm a resident of Kauai before I'm a county of Kauai employee. And so when I hear community narratives, when I hear, you know, trends on the streets, what are people talking about? What's bothering them? What do they feel like they need? Like that resonates with me as a resident, as a community member, before it resonates with me as a county employee. But when I go to work, I take that sentiment with me to work, and it helps me to advocate to my higher ups, to the decision makers, to say, you know, it may not seem like it's important, but I'm telling you, I'm hearing it. People are contacting me. You know, there's buzz on social media. Like, it is important to folks, and the advocacy is huge. I mean, we need more. We need more civic engagement. Ultimately, we really do, at all levels of government, and it's really easy. Sometimes I have the same experience of, like, oh, you know, they don't listen, they're not listening, we're too small to be important, especially if, like, Kauai, we're a community of, you know, less than 80,000 residents. Sometimes when opportunities come up in the state, we maybe get a little bit smaller funding, or we kind of get overlooked and glanced over, and like, you know, I get frustrated too, like, oh, we're not, um we're the small guys, we're not important, you know. But the more we bang on doors, the more we raise awareness collectively, the better chances we have to have our needs met. So it's very, very important. And you may think that one small piece of advocacy, one small note to a council member, to the mayor's office, or even to us, doesn't mean anything, but it really does. It adds up.
Yeah, I think talking story is super important. I used to have a friend that used to say, closed mouth doesn't get fed, you know, and that's one of the things I kind of like go by, is like, hey, sometimes you got to talk, you know, sometimes it's a little much, but it's better to talk and get things out there and to learn and to know what's going on. Half the stuff that I know on the island is because I've gone around and tried to meet farmers and people doing things. And just having that knowledge, I could pass on, like, hey, this is what's going on the island. When we've had legislators come here from off island, things like that, they tend to be really impressed because they know that everyone kind of knows what's going on and people talk. And that's the way that we can get people to actually commit resources and to help out in ways that we probably wouldn't have been able to. So
Excellent. I echo Calvin's support of communicating with others and just talking story to share the knowledge and awareness. The one sister agency I want to do a quick shout out. If you have not heard of the National Ag Statistics Service, they do our ag census. So very similar to a US census. I mean, this is how the feds get information on the resources needed. So right down to the county level, they're doing ag census reports that show how many farmers are in the county, what they're farming, how much they make. So very similar to the US Census. I hope that our customers are familiar with the ag census that NAS does. That's a great way to get information to the right people about getting resources to the different counties. Thank you. Back to you.
yeah, just to echo that, I 100% agree with her. I know it's optional. That survey, usually it's like a 30-page packet, and it's always intimidating people. I've helped people fill it out, and they're always just like, it's the same thing with our paperwork in general. But legislators, they read that stuff. They see that represents. So yeah, good call, Jolene. I 100% agree.
Yeah, and I think on our legislative panel this morning too, Senator Gabbard was there, who is the head of the, Senate Committee on Agriculture and Environment. And, there were some interesting takeaways from that panel too about funding and advocating for needs. And some of the things that came out is bring kids, make them cry. They love it. They don't like saying no to kids. And go in person to testify. And I think that's something like, because of our lack of access, to Honolulu as a county, we don't have as many farmers going out there. They just started doing Zoom testimonies. You can even Zoom in. It's still not as great, but it's better than just writing or nothing. But hearing your voice is really important. And I can say I've only testified at the county level once in person in my entire life. And there was a bill I didn't agree with about agricultural dedication, that like losing the dedication, so there's no dedication to get a tax break. And I went in there and I was testifying against it, and they looked at me and said, well, no one else cares, you're the only one that's here. And I had waited about 6 hours in that building to testify, and I'm like, I kind of know why they're not here, and I don't think I'm gonna come back again, So I mean, it's kind of, I know sometimes these experiences can be struggle to have your voice heard, but like send that email, make the phone call, get an appointment, do something, because when you talk to your legislators in advance, they need to hear if you agree with something, you don't agree with something, if there are needs that aren't being met. And that's the only way they can make a difference, but they need to hear it much more frequently and regularly. And the cool part about county especially is, like, we know all our council members, we know their names, we know where they live, we know their family, like, get comfortable, find some that are really comfortable, and reach out to them actively. That most of them, if not all of them, are really receptive to agriculture as an industry and want to support it. Some just might not know how, so let them know how.
And if I can add to Megan's important theme there, if folks are not comfortable or they feel intimidated, there are other groups like Farm Bureau or Farmers Union that do the advocating. So if you're not comfortable getting up to testify, maybe check into one of those, Farm Bureau or Farmers Union, and see where your values and vision and goals align. But they can speak up for you too. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, and thank you so much for answering everything so far and participating on this panel. I did want to share one last thing before we end the day. And again, thank you to everyone. As a part of our Food System Summit, not only are we having these webinar panel discussions today, but we are actually hosting different work days and events across this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. And a part of that is Niki shared in her presentation, as well as Megan. Mālama Kaua received funding from the county OED, as well as NAF, the Native American Agriculture Fund, to support an Hawai restoration in Makaweli for our kalo farmers. And this Sunday at 9, we are going to be doing a community work day there. And we got a ton of support and signups already. I see Niki and her team are going to hopefully be able to join us there as well. So the Hawai, it's been a long-awaited project. I think it hasn't been restored in over 60 years. Yes. So we'll be able to share some before and after pictures with everyone. And we're meeting at the Waimea Swinging Bridge at 9. If anyone in the panel or attendees are able to join. And then this workday is also going to be supported by Vetiver Kauai, which we're very humble and grateful for. We are going to be stabilizing that Hawai restoration, the banks, with some vetiver to help keep, like, literally dig roots down and grow the roots down to stabilize that bank and help prevent erosion and keep that nice restoration. Like, yeah, it's amazing, and we're very excited. So if you're able to join, please do. We also have more events across this weekend. You can go to Mālama Kaua